Hello, welcome to the No Rest for the Vivid podcast. My name is Claire Hill, self-belief coach and founder of the Vivid Business Club. And before I go on with today's episode, go and check, have you followed, have you subscribed? And if you're watching on YouTube, have you followed or subscribed? Now, I think you can only subscribe on YouTube, but it means amazing things for the podcast and just shows how much you care so that people care more about this podcast. So I get amazing people on like Ro. Welcome, Ro, to the podcast.
Hello.
How are you doing?
Yeah, great. Thank you. Very excited to be here. It's lovely to get a chance to chat.
Yeah, I know. It's really, really lush to chat to you. You are founder of the She Collective. I feel like so formal when I do this. Ro Fielden-Cook, founder of the She Collective, all-round amazing lady. I'm so happy to have you here. So tell everyone about you, even though I've just done it. It's awkward. Of them. Like I've got to shoot you, but then I go, introduce yourself. So anyway, the floor is yours.
So I am founder of the She Collective. Like you said, I'm a PT and a mindset coach and mum to 3 rather hectic boys. And so life is pretty busy. The idea with the She Collective really is that it's an online it is an app, but it's a membership, it's a community, and it's a way of getting women's wellness resources out in a kind of a one affordable platform. So it's your one-stop shop. So we're not just fitness. We've got, like I say, mindset and then nutrition, but then also like breath work, hypnotherapy, so many different things, meditations. So it's all round, it's holistic health. It's not just, not just your own fitness brand kind of thing.
I love it. And how did it all begin? What's the love story and your origin story? How did it all start?
Well, I'm definitely not your typical PT in lots of senses. I absolutely detested exercise for a good 30 years. But I actually found exercise, like a lot of people who find their kind of sort of passion and what they develop their business from, out of one of the darkest kind of places of my life. So my son Alfie has a condition called spinal muscular atrophy. I was single parenting for 5 years he's one of twins. And when he was 18 months old, he was diagnosed, but they gave him a very short life expectancy, sort of 3 to 4 years. I was just regularly in hospital. It was just a really incredibly dark time. And my mental health really suffered. I found that I was just trying to numb life, basically, lots of the usual things, kind of antidepressants, nothing wrong with them, but I was definitely on the wrong sort of dosage. I was just completely numb, alcohol, but then very much like a swan. So coping on the surface, but really struggling underneath. And then, I kind of found that little bit of inner fire, which is quite often what happens. Some of the good stuff comes out, some of the dark stuff. And a friend introduced me to a boot camp, which I just sort of laughed at, to be honest, because I was literally like, yeah, that's not going to be for me. Like, I absolutely was like, no, I hate exercise. It's not the one for me. But, I went in with the same intentions as always, like having had a horrendous relationship with my body for most of my life. I was like, right, well, maybe if I don't know, I saw kind of the benefits as maybe if I tone up or slim down, then I'll feel better in my head, or, those kind of things, thinking that the outward would kind of convert into the inward. But I just, I really found that in a fight, and I did keep going. And the biggest surprise to me was just how much it affected my mental health positively. It was like having like a cloak that had been sat on me for years just lift, and I just felt this lightness. I felt like myself again. And it just became so apparent to me, the power of exercise, the power of movement, beyond what we've all been taught as a generation, which is just this toxic diet culture, this toxic kind of, you've got to punish your body for eating certain foods and things. And it became this journey of really just self-discovery, but then also this passion for like, how the hell did I not know about this? Like, how have I lived my whole life thinking that exercise had to be this, fit into this box or be for this one purpose, when actually you mix it with accountability and community and all of the things that can come with it, and it can be magical. And so that was why, you know, so very long story short, but the boys' dad came back into their lives, and we actually ended up getting back together, which was a really magical time in my life. And we went on to have another child, and, you know, and then kind of taking that break again from exercise, my mental health really suffered again. And so the second time round on the exercise journey, that was it for me. I was like, when I just saw the same thing happen, I went from having postnatal depression, feeling really, really low, to basically being saved again by movement, by looking after myself. And I just thought, right, this is it. I've got to do something about this. We've got to find a way to show women that it can be done differently. And that's what the She Collective is. We're doing things differently. And that's what I'm really proud of, really. Sorry, that's a very long answer.
Honestly, it's like a bit, I don't know, your story is, I knew it was inspirational, but like there's obviously multiple layers to it. And as you were talking, I was thinking that there's a lot of the times when you get into this kind of role and the kind of businesses we run, there's a moment, it always does, it usually does come from a really dark time.
Yeah.
And like recently I've thought of myself and thought I wouldn't even recognize her if I walked past her in the street, how I used to be. And as you're talking, I imagine that's the kind of same thing for you, because you're talking about a version of you that you cannot see really any evidence around on how you are now. But then I was thinking to myself, but it is still there for us. Do you know what I mean? So as you were talking, I found so many, and I'm sure people are listening thinking, oh my God, yeah, that's me, because you do all of this growth and you work so hard on yourself and you create something to help other people. And it's so amazing. And people are like, really? You were like that? But it's like it's still carried with you.
Oh, 100%.
Am I making,
Actually, and I think that carrying with you is really important.
Yeah.
So for me, sitting with who that girl was is so important, because those are quite often the emotions, the way that people are feeling when they walk in through my door. So for them, it's really important that I actually do get it. Like I really do get it. Like I get those feelings. And one of the most powerful bits in the She Collective is that we do have these small communities. And when women come in and I get them to do these introductions, honestly, the power of saying their why and why they're there and what's motivated them, because these women turn around and go, oh my God, I'm not alone. Everyone else feels like this too. Because so often you can feel like, is it just me who feels that way? And that's what is so powerful about coming together as a community, because you're like, oh, okay, I'm not the weirdo. I'm not like the one not coping. Everyone else is struggling to, you know, juggle all these plates and stuff. And that is so, so powerful, because that's something that I felt so often was I felt so alone. You know, I was 22 when I had twins. So, you know, I was really lonely in so many ways. Like in my NCT group, everybody was 10 years above me plus, and all had husbands and had, you know, what felt like secure homes. So I felt like the failure, even though when I look back now, what's quite nice is I'm like, no, I wasn't a failure. I was a bit of a hero. I was like really, like, you know, I was really managing. Like I remember bumping into one of the NCT dads, and I was doing the food shop, because this is before online shopping, food shop in Sainsbury's. And he was like, and the boys were 6 weeks old. And he was like, huh? Like my wife hasn't left the house yet. And like I look back now and I did not have a choice. I just had to keep going. And particularly through those times of like, you know, Alfie's diagnosis, I had to just keep going. But the She Collective is something that it's everything I wish I'd had, you know, in those times, like particularly around his diagnosis, like, you know, all those times that I've been in hospital or things like that. Like if I had had just a community to just go, you know, because sometimes it's hard to lean on your friends, particularly when you feel like you're just trying, I don't know, I was always just trying to be brave, you know, and I think that being able to be vulnerable with a group of women who you owe nothing to, you don't owe them your time, you haven't got to go for coffees with them, you haven't got to do anything like that, there's no background, there's no history, it's so refreshing, it's so powerful.
God. I'm like, I can't believe that you went out. Well, to be fair, I was thinking I couldn't walk for like 3 months after I had my boy, but 6 weeks with 2 babies, it's like,
But
it's
it's quite,
mind-blowing.
it's amazing that what you can do when you have to, you
Yeah,
know, like,
absolutely. Yeah.
yeah. And I used to go up to London every other weekend with them because I was living in a little cottage in the middle of nowhere and I was so desperately lonely. And the way that I would get help was to go and see the friends in London and have an extra pair of hands for the weekend. And it actually created some of the most amazing memories. And I think this is the thing, is like that understanding that hard can be good, you know, like not in a, I wouldn't wish it upon anyone. But some of the most beautiful things in our lives come from something that is a bit hard. And I think that that's why when women start their exercise journey, I really am so passionate about saying to them, look, the beginning bit might be hard, but the whole point is that it won't always be. You do make that breakthrough. Otherwise, no one would ever stick to it. I mean,
No.
I wouldn't exercise if it was always going to be hard, but that initial bit is difficult. So making it as fun and, you know, and human as possible, I think is so important. I think so much of the wellness community, of the fitness community, it's just a bit of bullshit.
Absolutely. But isn't that a lot of people online are just full of
Yes.
bullshit?
Yeah.
I was talking about that the other day, and I was just thinking, it is like there's just so many people. I look and I think I can't follow you anymore because I can
No,
see that you're full
no.
of bullshit. And I think that's a battle all the time. And I don't know about you, and I'm showing up and I'm like, I swear I'm not full of bullshit. I swear I'm
Yeah,
not. I'm
I
not.
know. I know. And you know, like recently I've been having this weird like kind of, so in the last year basically, so last year again exercise was completely taken away from me. I slipped 2 discs in my neck. It was from,
God.
you know, 14 years of, so that boy who was given 2 to 3 years is now very much, well, he's actually up next door poorly now, but you know, he is doing really, really well compared to where we thought he was going to be. He's wheelchair bound. It's really tricky in lots of ways, but he is incredible, like an incredible human being. And but the impact of all his care and things, it caught up with me. And yeah, I had two slip discs in my neck and I just couldn't exercise at all. And recently I did like a reflection post. Last year was actually one of the darkest years of my life, like, and that includes like all the other stuff. It was so hard, but having that taken away again just re-emphasized to me about how much it's worth the fight. Like, I've lived both sides of the fence. I've lived the side of the fence where you're not taking care of yourself, where you know everything just feels totally overwhelming and you just feel like you're just constantly, it's like you're on the edge of the water just trying to keep your head above water. It's hell. Like, I've lived there, and I lived there recently. But obviously not exercising, it had the flip side of the coin where, like, naturally, like, I'd done a lot of exercise for years and years, and so my body had, you know, shown that, and I felt this body confidence. But to lose that body confidence on top, like, it really emphasized to me again about how important that is. But at the same time, it's been an interesting one to not look like a PT but be a PT, because online, unfortunately, if you're showing before and afters, if you've got a six-pack, you quite quickly get success, because that's what everybody is kind of going, well, she's done it. But what they're not saying is, actually what I do is I train 5-6 times a week. I have brilliant genetics. You know, genetics play a huge part. I'm eating this certain very restricted diet or whatever it might be. And so with that bullshit online, for me, it is so important that what I am showing is actually very authentic. I don't do anything other than what my members do. So I'm not expecting to have a very different results, if that makes sense. Like, at the moment, I've flipped the script and I'm doing more strength training. That's showing great results in my body, and that's brilliant. But at the same time, I'm never going to have time to exercise more than 4 times a week, 30 minutes at a time. It's not going to happen. It's not
Is that
my
all you
life.
do? 4 times a week for 30 minutes?
That is it. Yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
my goodness.
That is it. Like, because what's really interesting about home exercise, right, is if you exercise on a home exercise program that has somebody, like, I am obsessed with the science. I love the science of it. So if you've got somebody sitting there and spending an hour programming, thinking about every bit of your body, thinking about every system, everything, you're getting the equivalent of a 45-hour long gym session. So people can be quite kind of, you know, turn their nose up at home exercise. But if you're a busy woman, you've got to train like a busy woman. And that is efficient stuff, like so efficient. So that's why I'm a convert, even though but you know, even though I would have said before, like pre-COVID and having, you know, the time and space, or just not even, I wouldn't have even considered home exercise.
So your thought, I think I'm going to join up. I said this to my husband the other day. I was like, I think, because you've got your May challenge coming up, haven't you? Is it May?
Yeah, well, I was going to do June, but everyone's keen for a May one. So, you know, I think I'm going to have to do May.
I said to my husband, because I've quit the gym,
Yeah.
and I run, I walk. I've had a little bit of time off of running because my knees needed to, all of those muscles around my knees needed to strengthen up.
Yeah.
So I've got a bike, and I've been doing these HIIT workouts, which there's this woman on YouTube. Honestly, I've cried twice with these workouts because they hurt so much.
Oh, because they hurt.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you meant because she was like, you know,
No,
emotional. I was like, she's
she's like, come on, hype, you can do this, you're a champion. So I love all that. But it's just so get on a bike and then have a YouTube thing, whatever. But it's also because it hurts. I'm a bit like, nah. And basically, it's all that's happening is my bum and my legs are getting big, because that's what you do, get on a bike, isn't it?
So I just think it is so fascinating what we have almost been brainwashed as a generation to think that we should be doing. Like, so it was this time last year that obviously that I hurt my back and stuff, and I was doing shed loads of high impact exercise at the time. Basically, I felt like if I wasn't sweating, I felt like it wasn't working. But what was happening was that I had a high impact life, and I was putting more high impact exercise on top. And what was happening was that I was just absolutely destroying my hormones. And so my body was just clinging on to everything that it could possibly get. If your body as a woman feels unsafe because you're putting it into this high cortisol workouts, then essentially what happens is that we go into this flight mode. And so we're just basically, our body doesn't allow us to sort of like let go of maybe fat that isn't serving us, or it doesn't allow us to kind of show those positive effects. And so by concentrating more on this like very holistic, low impact kind of way of working, honestly, the members, it is like blowing their minds, because we've taken out HIIT. Like, everyone was like, it's so weird not doing the HIIT exercises and stuff. And some of the women are still running alongside of it. But 4 workouts, really body focused, one of them being Pilates. So you've got your mobility, your flexibility, all of that. And then I do an upper body one, a lower body one, and a full body one. And it is just like so incredible how much we can simplify things. Like, we've just evolving so much in women's wellness. And I think the quicker women like get onto this, the quicker they're just going to feel like, I'm so much more energized, like my sleep is so much better, all of these things. But I love, you know, like I said, body confidence, let's not take away the fact that it does matter, particularly coming into these summer months. And I'm loving the changes, you know, it's like, it's exciting, it's great.
Ro, you've just blown my mind. So me doing these workouts where like it hurts, and it's obvious, I mean, I do get a bit of a buzz, but I actually was thinking, like, aren't I supposed to be feeling even, you know, if you like, I've run, and you know, when you run so fast, you feel like you're going to fly.
Yeah.
And you're literally like, oh my God. And normally I've got like the Greatest Showman pounding in my head or something.
I love that.
And I feel amazing.
Yeah.
But I haven't felt like that with exercise for a really long time. I would say probably about 8-9 months. And
so this is why. So you've put yourself, basically, your cortisol levels have gone so high that what's happening is it's affecting your insulin, and you need that insulin to be able to have the motivation. So if you're feeling like fatigued and things like that, what can happen is that we're sitting in this high level of cortisol for so long that then we get depleted in insulin, and the insulin is what you need for that energy. And so this is what so many women it's happening to. I did it to myself, you know, and when it happened, I'm such a believer in really mastering your craft. So last year I spent so many hours and hours and hours quite literally just reading about women's bodies, reading studies, educating myself, trying to understand why suddenly what had been working for me for so long was no longer working. And I think what's really interesting as well is that obviously what you're doing has to really fit your niche. So I always say, whatever you're choosing, it needs to work with your niche, because that's just working smarter, not harder. So for me, I'm always working with women, typically about the age of they're usually 33 to 50. That's kind of my age range. And so we're nurturing their hormones. And once you've got happy hormones, you're going to have better energy. And when you've got better energy, you're going to be more motivated. But it's all about building up these little small success stories. And so that's what we do, at the beginning of these programs. So when I say they're very typical buzzwords, aren't they? 30-day challenge, 6-week challenge. But I'm very strong about getting the messaging across that is your foundation. So you're building a house. You've got to think about your house is going to be for the rest of your life, right? That you want to live in, as in your house being your body. So if you build your house on sand, which is HIIT workouts, pure cardio, all of these things like counting calories, all of those things, you're building a house on sand. And so it's so important that we are nourishing our hormones, looking after ourselves, reducing our cortisol levels, so that we have got these strong foundations. Because, for me, one of my biggest whys is I don't want to be 80 years old and not be able to get off the floor. Like I want to be playing with my grandchildren. I hate the idea of being old and having a body that's full of ailments. I mean, I've watched it with my mum. She's had multiple hips, knees replaced. It looks like hell to me. So when you're losing between 3 and 8% of your muscle mass every decade from the age of 30, we've got to do something to counteract it. And that's why this sort of lower impact weight bearing exercise, we're looking after our skeletal muscle, and that is responsible for pretty much every single thing in your body. So skeletal muscle health is responsible for pretty much everything.
So with heart health and cardio and stuff, if we're doing it still impacts that in a positive way.
Yeah, absolutely. But cardio is absolutely, I'm not killing cardio, because I think a lot of PTs have done that. Have just been like, cardio's in the bin. And I don't believe that at all, because, especially if you've got a busy life. I mean, I don't know about you, but I need to be able to run about and, and run about like a blue ass fly. That's what we do all day, right?
Yeah.
So actually, it's really important that you do have that heart health. But things like walking up hills, that is one of the best things that you can do. They recently did an amazing study on working out who basically had the longest lives. And basically the incline that people lived on directly related to the length of life that people had. So people who were regularly walking up hills were having longer lives. And this is about getting yourself into this blue zone, as they call it. So it's this gentle kind of raising your heart rate without this high impact, is so good for you. And then just thinking about, the building blocks of life. So the other thing is, obviously, you've got to match that really carefully with making sure that you've got enough protein, because again, your skeletal muscle is so determined by your protein. And this is so important. So trying to I've changed. I think I was probably eating around 30 grams of protein a day. Now I'm a minimum of 100, and I don't have cravings. My mood is better. All these things can be solved by something so simple.
Can you increase? I feel like sometimes I interview people and they've come into my life at the right exact time.
Yeah, I believe in that.
I'm so lucky to do this podcast. And it's literally this morning, with exercise and diet and stuff, because I've got, I suppose I've got IBS, but I've something wrong with my stomach, which I've been battling for 5 years. It came on all of a sudden when I was in Thailand, and that flight home was horrendous. But there's some times where I'll just have a huge flare up. I've also got hypoglycemia. So then certain foods will, my insulin's very reactive, and then I'll crash and stuff. And then I'm trying to do this and trying to run a business and So there's lots of things to come into play. And what I've realized, I'm trying to do at the moment is sort of do a bit of keto. Can you
Yeah.
do high protein without that strictness of keto? Is keto still basically too restrictive moving forward in a work harder, smarter, not harder way?
Do you want my honest truth?
Yeah, absolutely.
I absolutely detest keto.
Okay, tell me why. This is the best interview ever. Go, tell me why.
Well, okay, for a start, you've got to think about, ask yourself a question when it comes to nutrition. Could I do this every day, every moment for the rest of my life? And you wouldn't do anything, right? Okay, so it's really important within a diet that we are creating this place of peace, okay? So for me, that sits around an 80-20 split. So I'm making pretty good choices about 80% of the time, 20% not. But with keto, to get keto to work for a start, you've pretty much got to be doing keto all of the time.
Yeah.
Which, first of all, is going to spark off so much self-sabotage, because it's natural that when we hold ourselves back from something, that it's going to make us want to, I don't know, it's essentially creating a negative thought pattern within your head around food. And what we want to do is become friends with food, because what's going to happen is that the more kind we are to ourselves with nutrition, the happier our gut's going to be. And our gut is responsible for just pretty much everything to do with our health. So it's not very friendly to the gut. The other thing is what's really interesting. So with Alfie's condition, he suffers from something called ketonic hyperglycemia.
Okay.
And so what happens with that is that essentially his body accidentally is going into a state of ketosis. Now, when it goes into the state of ketosis, it can do one of two things. You tap into your fat resources, which is essentially the idea of like behind keto, or it can tap into your muscle resources. So when you're putting your body into such a stress, then essentially you're doing exactly what I was saying about making your body go into that fight or flight. And so it's just such a kind of aggressive way of treating our bodies when our bodies are doing so much for us. The other thing is that carbohydrates are so key to us. Like I can't describe it enough about, like, just because protein is a pro, it doesn't mean that, carbohydrates are the enemy. Like, I grew up a lot like doing the Atkins diet and doing things like that. And it was just extraordinary how much so many of the symptoms that I now look at, that I was getting, acne, and I was getting fatigue, low sex drive, all of these things, that they are actually related to high cortisol. And they were related to the fact that I was doing these diets that were stressing out my body like crazy, like absolutely crazy. So what I love with nutrition is just simplifying the whole thing so much. So I'm actually doing a qualification in it at the moment, but I always want to be really clear that, I'm a PT, not a nutritionist, but I do know enough now to kind of give basic advice. And what I love with nutrition is just simplifying the whole thing so much. So the only thing I ever weigh out is the protein, just to make sure that I am getting those building blocks, of being able to build muscle, and being not like build muscle. Like I don't want, that's not a look I'm kind of going for as such, but having that kind of skeletal muscle is what I'm talking about. So so that's about the only one that I would measure, but I much prefer going with like basically using your hand to kind of to see how much we're using on our portions, because the truth is your plate needs to be balanced for your life to be balanced, for your hormones to be balanced, for your energy to work. Everything needs to be balanced. So basically the way that I look at it is a closed fist of protein, so about that much on my plate. I go for an open palm of fiber, so fruit and veg, that sort of thing on my plate. Your palm size of your more complex carbohydrates, so rice, potatoes, that sort of thing. So open palm of that. And then you mustn't forget your fats, so about a thumb size of fat, because if you're not eating those fats, then you're not being able to transfer all of this goodness into the beautiful vitamins and minerals that are needed for our bodies. So fats, like, I don't know about you, but I, again, was taught low fat, and low fat is just packed with sugar. It's absolute crap.
Yeah.
We need the fat for our hormones. We need it to get those vitamins and minerals and stuff. And so eating the rainbow, eating, good food. But the moment that you start concentrating on just hitting that protein goal, it's amazing how everything else just fits into place, because cravings just go. It's extraordinary.
So not necessarily, because I'll tell you what, I've been doing it literally for a day.
Yeah.
So it's not long.
Yeah.
And already I can't stop thinking about bananas. So literally, I've got these, like, I was making these protein pancakes, and one of the big, and it's being like gluten free. It's so hard to find stuff that you eat and you're like, oh my God, that tastes like normal stuff.
Of course. Yeah.
So I made these protein pancakes and they're so good. But they needed a banana. I was like, shit, what am I gonna do? Got to find something else. So I really like this. I'm just gonna do a blend and just increase my protein. But
yeah,
what good ways to eat fats, like avocados, olive oil, nuts?
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you've just said them all. Just sort of those non-saturated fats. And and I thought it was really interesting, because obviously this week, I don't know if you saw about Joe Wicks getting into trouble with
what happened?
You see, Joe Wicks is my hero. I love him. Like, he's so pure of
Oh,
heart.
was it the ADHD thing?
Yeah, the ADHD thing. And it's so difficult not to say something, and get it wrong, I think, particularly when it comes to diet and PTs and stuff. And that's why I'm sort of being cautious of what I'm saying. It's basic advice. But I think what is really interesting is that what I think his point is that he was saying that we cannot stop, not think about the fact that certain foods make us feel a certain way. So what's interesting is that, we could think about an apple and a biscuit, and they've got the same calorific, value. But what's going to happen is, with a biscuit, is you're going to get your blood sugar spiked and then you get dropped off a cliff. So what I always say to women is, look at your day and think about, so write it down and think about how your body's feeling. So what a lot of women do, they get up in the morning, they're having caffeine on an empty stomach. And so therefore what they're doing is they're instantly spiking their cortisol. And so then what's happening is that they're knackered and they're busy. And so they're grabbing a piece of toast or some cereal for breakfast. And then it's hitting 10 a.m. and they're hungry. So then they're grabbing a biscuit to bring them up. And then they're crashing down. And then they're busy. So then they're getting a meal deal from a petrol station. And it's a crisp sandwich drink, all of those kind of things. And I'm exhausted just even thinking about it, talking about it. So imagine what your body's going through. So I think, like, my thing is always about, with exercise, with nutrition, let's just make the body feel really safe. And so cutting out caffeine, for example, at the beginning of my day, absolute game changer.
Yeah, me too. I go 90 minutes, 2 hours.
Brilliant. Yeah. And then a protein rich breakfast. So 20 grams of protein by 10 a.m. I mean, all these things that you feel like the first few days, it's like, oh, okay. And then you start to feel the effects, because with all these changes, this is the thing, isn't it? We need to feel the change to get the motivation. Because if you're like, oh, why the hell am I doing this? I really enjoyed my cup of coffee and I'm not feeling the difference. It's really difficult to do. Same with exercise. Why am I doing this when that? But actually, once you start to feel the changes, it's like, okay, it all starts to click.
Yeah, that coffee thing was savage. Last August, I did, I think, 2-3 weeks off coffee. I tried to do a month and I was like, no, I feel like I've lost part of me.
Yeah.
But when I introduced it back, having that gap. So the very minimum I'll do is an hour. But the usually I try to aim for like 90 minutes, 2 hours. But it's really interesting you brought up about the breakfast thing, because I read recently about it, and I have been, and I've said this on the podcast before, I've always fasted, like intermittent fasted for like 15 years. So before the 5-2 thing, because I remember, like, when I was living on my own before I met my husband, and it was just a way, I just always have done it. So not eating, but then again, when I was growing up, I never ate breakfast. I was never made to eat breakfast or anything like that. So I don't know whether that's just the way it is. So bringing breakfast into my day when it's not the weekend feels so alien. And yesterday I did it. So I was like, right, let's try and have breakfast. But it did make me feel weird. It's like, because I wasn't like, I was in weekend mode instead of work mode for a little bit.
And if you've done something for a long time, that definitely happens. You know, your body is like, what are we doing here?
Yeah.
It takes, it takes a little bit of time to get used to it. I mean, it's the same with babies, isn't it? It's so funny. It's like I used to just like change everything up like every 3 to 5 days. Like, that's not working. But a friend of mine who's a doctor was like, you cannot do anything with a human being for less than 5 days and expect your body to adjust. So it's such an important thing, I think, and the thing is about intermittent fasting is, I think there's a lot of research that's been done on it now. Like, your gut needs a break. There's absolutely no doubt about it. So when I think about like non-negotiables in my day, I give my gut a 12-hour break. That's what I aim for. So that really helps me with, I sit and have a decaf tea on the sofa in the evening. That's just like a little ritual.
Yeah.
But generally, I'm just aiming to kind of not do that evening snacking, because it's just too much for you. Think, food is energy at that time of night. What are you doing with that energy? Nothing. So that's the way that I sort of think about it. But what we just want to be careful about is, particularly with working with our cycles, we're circular beings. So I love that book, Fast Like a Girl. So
I don't know that one.
Yeah, it's brilliant. So if intermittent fasting is something, like I always say, like, we're not trying to change who you are. Like, if you're somebody, like what you're saying is that you're somebody who's never eaten breakfast. Like, so if that's who you are, then that is going to be quite hard to change. But could we work with, with your hormones in that respect, and maybe like work around your cycle? Because that would be like a one-step improvement, if that makes sense. Because actually, intermittent fasting over 15-16 hours, it puts, again, so much pressure on our bodies. So it's just finding ways. Like I always say, it's not black or white. Like it's really not. It's not 50 Shades of Grey either, but you know what I mean.
And I think it's that point where I love I've always thought I'm quite good with nutrition.
Yeah.
Like, I've got a knowledge, and I love experimenting with new food. I made like broccoli rice last night for the first time, and I made it like into a stir-fried rice, and it was just amazing. I was like, well, I can live with this. Stuff like that. I love doing all of those things, and I've always felt that fasting suited me. However, that has not improved my spikes when I have a crash with my hypoglycemia. It's not helped my stomach. It's not helping my energy levels. It's not really helping I do sleep much better than I used to, but still, that's the case. I've dropped my alcohol intake massively. I've had massive, big chunks of time with no alcohol at all. But all of those things is still not working. What about if I just lean into what you're saying, join your membership, which I think I'm going to do, lean into that way of just going, let's be a bit kind, because everything you're saying is like all of those things. And I'm sure people are listening exactly the same. I'm running a business all by myself. Well, I've got my assistant, but running a business on my own. I'm a mum, I'm a husband, I'm a wife. I've got a house, I've got all of these things that make life, your cortisol levels are going to spike anyway.
Yeah.
And then I'm asking even more of my body.
100%. 100%. This is where you need to question yourself and go, if something isn't working, if something's not right, it's time to do things differently. And the more that we can treat ourselves, like, think about what you would say to a toddler, right? You would not say to a toddler, right, now you're really tired and you've had a really busy day. Do you know what you've got to do? You've got to not eat anything for the next 15 to 16 hours. You're not allowed any carbohydrates. Imagine, like, you wouldn't dare. And so, like, actually reframing it and literally treating ourselves like we would treat a child on every level, from the way that we talk to ourselves in the mirror, from the way that we're feeding ourselves. You would never do that to a child. So why do we do it to ourselves? And all of these things that they, all these things, like, I get so many women who've been in Weight Watchers for years, Slim Fast, all these things. They were built by misogynistic men, and they were set up for us to fail. And so the thing is that we just constantly fail. So then we feel shit about ourselves. So then we get back and we're looking for another fix. And I've been there. So it comes with zero judgment. But I've also watched hundreds of women now do things differently, and it is like blowing my mind about the impact that it is having. Like, it's amazing. It's literally magical. I love it so much. It's so good, honestly.
I'm definitely joining. It's I don't know if I've said it on the podcast before, but I did Slimming World last year
Right.
for a little bit, and oh no, actually probably about 18 months ago, and I lost quite a lot of weight on it. I lost of like stone and a half, which for myself was quite a lot, and it was like a good spark in the right direction. But as soon as I went onto their, like when I met my target weight, when I went onto their whatever, I've forgotten even what it's called now, the weight just came back.
Yeah.
And it felt like, even though that is designed by a woman from Slimming World, so I'm not slagging Slimming World off, because actually there's a really wonderful community feel about it.
I have
and
heard better things about it than the other two.
There was lots of good things, but in regards to, it's not calorie counting, but what you're encouraged to do, what some people do is like, it's, you can have as much pasta as you want, as much rice as you want. And for somebody like me, that's just does not work, doesn't work at all. So then, but then there was, the recipes are really good for Slimming World, but it's still very restricted. It's like you give your, and I'm talking for myself now, it's like the only way that I can feel like I'm in control of how I feel about myself, which, as I'm saying this out loud, I'm a freaking self-belief coach. Like, so, you know, I'm saying this is vulnerable, and you know, learning myself, but the only way that I can be really good with what I eat and what I do is if I give my power over to an organization and give them my money. Now, I'm not saying that I don't feel like that would happen from what you deliver. What you're doing is giving the guidance and the information so that you design it for yourself.
100%. That's exactly it. Education is empowerment. I always say this, right, to the women in the membership. I said, I can educate you on it's literal facts that I'm teaching them. You know, the stuff in the app that around education, around food, all of that stuff, we're talking factual stuff. Then the mindset stuff. So I talk to them about emotions and eating. You know, I'm currently, like this week, writing a mindful food book, like for the app and stuff. All of these things, they're all for them to find their formula, and nobody's formula looks like anybody else's, because nobody's life looks like yours. So when you're trying to fit yourself into, you know, it can be like square peg round hole situation.
Absolutely,
like you're trying to fit something into a life that might not look like yours, and that is so unique. It's so unique. Like, well-being is so unique, fitness is so unique. Like, that's why I always say, you know, on the 30-day challenges, there's like such a range of workouts, because it's so important for women to learn what they like and what they don't like. I always say, like, if you do, you know, a workout and you think, no, that's not for me, absolutely fine. That's why there's like 300 workouts on the app of, like, we've got kickboxing, Pilates, yoga, Zumba, bar, like all of these things. Like, your body is going to love some of them and hate some of them. And isn't that what a wonderful journey to discover that, rather than going, I've only got to do this. You know, it's like you know, this is your formula and this is what you've got to do. I just don't believe that that works.
This is a movement, babe.
Oh, it is a movement.
You know,
it's so nice to come on and talk about it, because you know so well what it's like when you're working so hard for something and it has so many ups and downs, and the reality of running a business whilst you're running a family, and all of those things can be so tough. But every single time I'm doing these women's wellness evenings at the moment, every single time I talk to women about it, every single time I do this, I'm like, I will not flip and stop until women understand that we can do this differently, because it's changed my life, like genuinely, completely changed my life. And I see it on the daily in those WhatsApp groups that it's changing theirs too. And that's why, you know, you just got to roll with the punches, don't you? Business.
Absolutely. And as long as you're right for time, I mean, the point of this podcast, I've sort of pivoting it slightly, because when I feel a lot of doubt,
Yeah.
I know how to move through it, but I
Yeah.
just want that comfort of sharing, listening to stories from
Mm.
other entrepreneurs where they've said, yeah, I've been there. I've been in the
Yeah.
dip. I've been in that moment where you've got to trust the void. Have you, and obviously it sounds like last year was obviously tough for you.
Mm.
What experiences have you had of facing your doubt and your fear and moving through them? And what's been on the other side?
Oh my God. I think if I had been told, like someone sat with me today and said, because I've been running the She Collective now, it's coming up 3 years. And if someone had said to me what the last 3 years had been like, I would just go, no, thank you. Like my life is hard enough. Like, no way. Because I can't tell you how many months I haven't paid myself. I can't tell you how many months that I have just felt absolutely like I can't do this anymore. I cannot do it anymore. So whilst I'm talking at a point where I do think, things are definitely on the up, like we've now got like over 300 members, like it's just so wonderful watching it make an impact. But I do love those stories of Joe Wicks where he's turning up to his boot camps with his trolley and all of that, because it has felt like that. It really has felt like that. And I think the one thing that draws me back every time when I'm on the edge of going, I can't do this anymore, because it's interesting. People could look at the amount of members that I've got, but what they don't understand is the level of investment that goes in with online business,
And
doesn't it?
memberships,
It's
though.
and memberships,
Yeah,
everything. Like,
everything.
I'm taking less than a third of that. Like it's incredible what it takes in terms of numbers to actually get to a point where you're like,
Yeah,
okay, this is comfortable now. Like this is good. And I'm still working towards that, but it's getting better. But I would say that on those months, the best thing I've ever done as an online provider is have that in-person connection on some level.
absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, just on some level, whether it be that I ran a random boot camp or I've held retreats or I've done women's wellness evenings. But every single time I do that, it just brings me back to my why. And I think that why is just, you just can't, why would you do it otherwise?
No, I wouldn't.
Yeah,
Absolutely not. And I think it's really important. I mean, obviously I've got a membership as well. And I
yeah,
think there
yeah,
is I'm in a mastermind with Stu McLaren. He's the lead coach on it, and he's like my membership king.
yeah,
And I love him, by the way. He's like
yeah,
brilliant.
yeah,
But he says, memberships, it's quite easy for people to bring a membership, and it's bringing in that recurring revenue, and it's a really fantastic thing. But I think he neglects, and I think we've actually all spoken about it in the group. It's
yeah,
like, it's brilliant. I love the community. I love,
yeah.
like, when I if I ever have those mornings, I'm like, what am I doing this for? I just go in the Vivid Business Club and I'm like, yeah, that's why. The
Right.
transformation of these people. But what's neglected, I think, is the work to get it to that point.
Yeah,
Whereas I think there are other versions of online businesses where, like you say, it's not you have that investment, but it seems to be a higher profit margin. But with, as you know, memberships, you've got to have a hosting site, you've got to have all of those things, all of
yeah.
the training, the videos,
Oh,
and
yeah.
and
I
how
mean,
much that
building
costs.
an
Yeah,
app, it's
yeah,
10 grand investment, like off the bat. And then they take a big profit margin every month. Like, but at the same time, if you are going to host a certain amount of people, you have to have the tech to back it up. And I think
absolutely.
that's what's so difficult is that, I am not a technological person, as you saw right before we were starting this, and I'm untangling everything and, all of that. Tech is not my forte. It's not my comfort zone. And having to learn those comfort zones and then decide which ones are just too beyond your comfort zone and you have to invest. What I have found is that every single time I don't have a mentor, like I'm doing Jenna O'Keefe's
Yeah,
mastermind, and I've just gone back into that because I came on leaps and bounds and felt great last time I was working with Jenna, and then as I came out of it, being your own leader with no one else is the loneliest place on earth. And that for
absolutely.
me is like, now I've just made a commitment that even though that's a big investment, that is a non-negotiable for me as a business leader now. Like, I am absolutely need somebody to lead me, and that's so important, because even Jenna will have her own person leading her.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's absolutely, I couldn't agree more with you, because I think when I'm in my mastermind, we've got a meeting next week, and it's like, I'm going to America in September for like 2 days with them all. It's like, it's incredible because you're just you get that this energy of
Yeah,
people that are in the same boat as you, and you're like, oh, that's absolutely normal. This is what I feel like. Oh, okay. So you just
absolutely.
use this.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. And then that sense of accountability that, when you show up, you've got to have had made progress, haven't you? When you're in a mastermind as well, because
Yeah.
it's like everyone looking at you going,
Yeah. Yeah.
how's that then? What did you do? And you
Yeah.
can't hide away from any of it.
Yeah, having that weekly or monthly or whatever it might be
Yeah.
accountability, because all my members, I give them that level of
Yeah.
accountability. And the other thing is, like, I think about it, like, my mum's a psychotherapist and she's always had a supervisor, so she has somebody for people come to her with all of those their things, and then she goes to her supervisor and offloads. And for me, I realized I was very much working as a therapist in lots of ways. That I'm not in all the groups now. I used to be in all of the groups, but in that I'm always in the initial ones. So whatever program somebody comes into the She Collective in, I'm in there daily, coaching them, encouraging and picking them up when they're feeling down. That's amazing. And it's an honor for me, but it's also an incredibly big energy drainer. And so if I don't have anybody supporting me, I have just found that that is just the worst place to be in, because I'm just literally like a plug and I've got like a million outlets going out. And that's why I had to get a community manager, because, I could not be on every WhatsApp group, because I was going to bed thinking about the fact that so-and-so was struggling, or so-and-so's kids had chicken pox,
Yeah.
and,
Yeah.
and it's great for them to be able to offload in those groups. But at the same time, when I'm taking that in, onto me, it can be so, so hard. And the other thing that I think is really important to say about with business, and my biggest learning, is getting that balance, as we all struggle with in life, between the fact that you have to spend a lot of time marketing yourself to grow your business, but you've also got to take care of who's in your business. So prioritizing the product and the service that you're giving people, whilst also, you probably know every entrepreneur feels that, but your energy just can feel so depleted because you've got to be on socials, because it's really important. You've got to get new business in, but at the same time, you're taking care of everybody
Absolutely.
within there. That for me is that's my one I'm learning on, if that makes sense. That's an
Yeah.
ongoing project.
Yeah, because there was certain phases when I know, like, I'm coming up to a launch, and I will have to be really invested in that launch.
Yeah.
So what I do through that process is, because I'm doing a challenge, I will
Mm.
get all of my current, or as many as want to take part, current
Yeah.
members into that challenge. So I'm looking after
Yeah.
them at the same time.
Yes, that's what I do.
And
Yeah, it's a good
yeah,
idea.
and then
Yes.
I'm going into, because then what I've learned is looking after the new members that arrive. And so then going into a challenge within the membership, so that I'm looking after all of them. But you're right. I came out of the there's a couple of groups that we've got, and I came out of one because I just it literally couldn't stop thinking about everybody all of
Yeah.
the time. And when
Yeah.
there's
Yeah.
that many people,
Yeah.
you just know that when I show up for the live stuff,
Yeah.
I want to be 110%,
Yeah.
like, come on, I'm ready for you, here I
Yeah.
am. And if I'm strained already before I've
Yeah.
got there, they're not getting their money's worth from that point of view.
No, it's such a hard balance, and I
Yeah,
think it's a hard one to get the people within the membership to understand as well. Like, I've had a few times where it's been quite tricky, and I've had to say, it's really important for me that I do keep marketing the business, because the whole point for me is that the more members that I get, the more incredible resources I get to share. So,
absolutely. Yeah,
so like, I had a really interesting situation where, my members had been really great about helping me in challenges. Like, they're putting it up on their stories. They've been great. Like, I'd kind of, always give them like a little bit of an incentive and stuff, but like, generally people were really good at sharing. Then they'd done lots of that, and then I had one launch where I was like, I'm not even going to mention it, I'm not going to ask anyone to share anything. And so, probably because I hadn't asked people who have busy lives, no one shared anything, and I had a real like flop of a launch, as it
yep,
were. And I had like a quarter of the numbers that I needed. But the impact of that was that the hormone coach that I had set up to come in to talk to everybody, I then had to cancel because I didn't have the funds that I was expecting from that launch. And so, an understanding as women, or as a membership, or whatever it might be, that my growth is their growth. Like, it's a good
absolutely.
thing. Like, and
Yeah,
it's so important, like, that we understand that as women, like, we are not one another's competition. We have the power to, like, really help one another, like create something magical. But we've got to speak up for one another and promote one another, and I think that's really important.
Yeah, 100%. And I think as well, when it's still small, there's
Mm,
a element, and I've said this to my members, that for a while, within the first 6 months, I held this
mm.
in-person event. I've read this book called Masters of Scale by Reid Hoffman, and it
Right.
talks about the founders of Airbnb and how they say, like, the founding people that are in your business, they are gold, they are diamonds.
Yes.
You need to
Yes.
soak them up. So
Yeah.
so we went to Coventry. I paid for the whole thing, and I just sucked their brains and literally got all of this stuff. But there was one thing
Fascinating.
that came across from somebody, and actually she's left now. So I don't know why it was still holding me back, but she said, I don't want the membership to be too big. I don't want it to
I've
be
had
too
this
big.
so many
Have you?
times. I've
Yeah.
heard
And
this so many times. Yeah.
I totally understand that, but that meant I was like, oh, okay. And so because of serving these women, some of them have been with me from the day dot.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
are
Yeah.
the best women I've ever met
Yeah.
in my life. And then I was like scared, like, oh, if I get new people in, are they gonna? Then I just stopped. I just stopped launching for a
Oh my God,
while.
this is so interesting because I have been through this and it is the biggest block, isn't it?
Yeah, so
Because
so big.
I've heard it probably 10 or 11 times from 10 or 11 different women, and trying to get my mindset round going that, well, then they're not it's very hard, but then they're not the women, they're not the members for you. That, I mean, that doesn't it make you cringe? It
Yeah, it
does,
just yeah,
because that's fine, but actually what we've just spoken about, you said it, this is what I'm doing here, this is a movement. What you're doing isn't just a business, it's a
no,
movement. So the impact that we have as business owners, as women, you can't keep that small, and
no,
so that voice can't be there all the time. I mean, I never, throw anyone out, but
no, of course.
but having to get my head round, okay, but actually that doesn't fit with my vision of this. Like,
Mm.
like I visualize a She Collective festival, like someone being able to,
Wow.
literally, like Fern Cotton has her Happy Place Festival, being able to turn up and go and speak to a hormone coach, do a bit of breath work, do a little bit of workout, like have, like, this really empowering, fun, amazing experience. I want to write a wellness book. I want to do all these things. So I need a big membership. So it's just,
That's the way it is. Yeah.
yeah, it's the way it is. Yeah,
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 yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And I think it's so powerful. Again, I feel like you've come today is the day that we were meant to speak,
I agree.
because the
Yeah.
first the two people that have actually said it to my face have both left the membership. So what am I doing? You know what I
So
mean?
now you've got nothing holding you back.
No, no, no,
Yeah,
no. Oh my
yeah.
God, I could talk to you all day. Well,
I love this,
I
Claire. This is
am gonna
great.
join. I'm gonna join
Yes, do
today. I'm
it.
so
Yeah.
joy. And I love the fact that you do these social things as well, don't you?
Oh my God. The socials are off the chart fun. They're so
Yeah. So
good.
I'm there. I'm coming.
Yeah.
What is so before I feel like how can I wrap this up? This has been such an amazing conversation.
Ah.
How I feel really posh today because I've printed out my notes.
Oh,
And so
look at you.
I
I
feel
love
like they need to have
that.
a logo on the back now, don't they?
Yeah.
Like, and
Oh
read
God,
you
I
in the news.
love
I was
that.
just checking that I've gone through everything. But the last question that I want to ask, as I ask everybody,
Yeah.
what do you know now that you wish you'd knew 10 years ago?
Oh God. Um,
Do you want me to remind you what you said in the notes?
yeah. Yeah, remind
um,
me.
I wish I had known, in order to succeed in anything in life, motherhood, business, etc., I need to put myself first, and that
There
wasn't
you
selfish.
go. That's great. I don't know why I froze then. I think it was because I was thinking, I literally, when you said 10 years ago, I was thinking about myself 10 years ago, and I
Yeah, it's
just
scary,
suddenly
isn't
was
it?
like, yeah, because that's the thing, isn't it? I said it's exactly that. I feel that I felt that it was selfish to prioritize myself. At
Mm,
every moment, I felt that I needed to break myself to be the best mother, to be the best provider, to do all of those things. And actually, in the process, it was breaking me,
yeah,
like, so badly that I was no good to anyone. I always say, like, especially if you're a mum, right? You are the mothership. You go down, they all go down. So prioritizing yourself, making yourself this strong, sturdy ship, you know, like that. My husband always says about, you know, with the flag can't fly high unless it's got this strong mast. And I think that that's what's so important, is that the more that we invest in ourselves, in our health, in every level, actually, the better we become for everybody. Everybody gets the benefit. And that's definitely like my mission now, to help women feel that and be able to feel that it's not selfish. Self-care is not selfish. It's totally necessary.
Totally necessary. Absolutely. I couldn't agree more.
Mm.
Oh, Ro, this has been so lush.
I've
Where
loved
can
it. This is
people?
just what I needed today.
Oh, is it? Oh,
Yeah.
so I feel like I'm just literally like, you're going to change my life, because I'm going to go and
Oh,
do some
I
different
love
things,
it. I
lower my
love it.
cortisol. Where can people find you, and can they join the She Collective today?
Yeah, oh my God, yes. So everyone always sort of looks at me for the challenges and the so I do a 6-week strength program and a 30-day challenge. But the best way to join the She Collective is to join the app. There's a 7-day free trial. And then there's a program that I do called Make It to the Magic, and that is available all year round. And the idea really is that you're going to make it to that 10th workout, and that is where that sort of the magic kicks in, because we all can think that we hate exercise, but actually you just got to make it to the magic. And so it's everything you could possibly need to get to that magic. And then we do have our 6-week strength programs and 30-day challenges throughout the year too. So lots of ways to join. But yeah, I love it.
I'm definitely joining.
Yeah.
One quick question before you go.
Yeah.
Is there an optimum time to exercise, or does it really matter?
Oh no, I always say the optimum time to exercise is when you can do it. The only thing that I would say is that just try not to go against the grain. So don't do it at times where you're going to have people needing you, you know, distractions, all of that. We really want to just set ourselves up for success. So if you are somebody who procrastinates, that's going to need to be early in the day. Otherwise, you're going to spend more time thinking about exercise than actually doing it. But if you're somebody who works from home, you know, if there was any absolute optimum time for your body, it is actually typically around lunchtime. So a lunchtime workout is a really good one, especially if you're working from home, because you'll find that actually your concentration and your cognitive function is so improved by that exercise. So that's a great time. But honestly, just whenever you can. I mean,
Love
busy
it.
lives, shoehorn them in.
I'm just thinking, like, when am I going to do my first workout tomorrow? I need to plan it in, or can I fit one in today? I've got to pop record
Yeah.
all day, so not today, but oh,
Yeah.
thank you, mate. We're going to do a fake goodbye now, and then we'll do
Yeah. Okay. Great.
Thank
Thank
you so
you.
much, babe. Thank
Thank
you.
you.